Yeah.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending where in the world you are right now watching this class. Welcome. Now, friends, while Rosh Hashanah is Judgment Day, in the generic, broad, general sense, God determines the quality of life for all of His creation. Human, animal, plant life, and the inanimate world. Nonetheless, there is a specific judgment, determination by God on Sukkot. That determination is for water, rainfall, so essential to life. That's one of the reasons, friends, that we take the 4 kinds in Sukkot, because of course they all require water. We wave them in all 6 directions as a plea to God, as it were, that all His forces of nature play out favorably and they be the channels for His divine blessing. So in theory then, the request for rain, and there is such a view in the Talmud, be on the first day of Sukkot, when we take the 4 kinds, when that very judgment occurs. In effect, we don't ask for rain then, or even praise God for causing the rain, because we're sitting in our sukkah. And we don't want it to rain while we're sitting in the sukkah. As the Talmud explains, it's akin to a servant who brings his master a cup of water, and the master pours the water on his head, expressing his displeasure of his service. So we don't want rain on Sukkot. Well then, when should we ask? Well, logically then, the time to request rain would be the very next day, which is the holiday of Shmini Atzeret. That ought to be the time to petition God to provide us with a bountiful winter in terms of rain. But we don't. The final ruling is, in the Talmud, that the request for rain is deferred 15 days. We do, yes, we do praise God. We mention the fact that God is the one who causes the wind to blow and the rain to fall, but we fall shy of actually asking for it. So the actual request, V'sein talamota livracha, may you please give dew and rain for blessing, is deferred for 15 days after Sukkot, because our sages determined it would take 15 days for the last pilgrim who would have come to Jerusalem on Sukkot, one of the 3 pilgrim holidays, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. And so the most distant point from Jerusalem would be in the north, and that would be by the Euphrates River, which is present-day Syria. It's 150 parseot. One traveling on foot would travel 10 a day, so it takes 15 days to arrive home. So therefore, so as not to inconvenience the last pilgrim and his family, traveling to the most distant and furthest point in the land of Israel, the furthest northest point, by Nahar Paros, the Euphrates River, the request for rain is deferred for 15 days to the 7th of Cheshvan, 15 days after the conclusion of Sukkot. The Talmud says, however, in Babylon, not Israel proper, where the need for rain is even less, the request for rain there begins 3 months or 60 days after the autumn equinox. What that simply means is the day when sun, day and night are equal. The time when, in other words, the sun is aligned with the equator directly, more or less. So 60 days from then, that's the autumn equinox, then there's the spring equinox. Same thing, but in the spring. The days are equal. So it's 60 days after that that we request rain. That's in Babylon. Now, the question is, although this is not our topic tonight, but it's of interest. But what about other countries? Europe? What about Australia, where I come from, where the seasons are reversed? We don't want rain when you want rain in North America, because that's our summer. I say our summer. I live presently in Montreal, but I hail from Australia, and that's forever, I guess, in some way, home. So when should they request? Well, there is an opinion of a very great halachic authority, Rabbi Asher, who lived in Frankfurt, Germany in the 1100s, who says that each country ought to ask, or each locale according to its particular need. Babylon asked later, we're no longer, most Jews aren't living in Babylon, so wherever Jews live, in France and Germany, he was arguing, the request should be much earlier. In fact, the 7th of Cheshvan. The reality is, the halachic conclusion is that actually everywhere outside Israel, including the southern hemisphere, asks for rain, as they did in Babylon. 60 days after the autumn or the winter, the autumn equinox, which is either December 4th or 5th, depending whether February had 28 days or 29 days. This follows the solar seasons are determined by the sun. And the Gregorian calendar is a solar calendar, so it's either December 4th or December 5th, irrespective. The reason, it's not entirely clear why that would be. Certainly if a particular locale is in need of rain, there is a part in the prayer, a certain paragraph which begins with the words Shema Koelinu, listen to our voice. That's where any individual or certain community can petition God for whatever is required at the time. But the formal kind of canonized, institutionalized request for prayer only takes place everywhere outside Israel on the same day, December 4th or 5th. And again, why would that would be? Not entirely clear. It seemed it has to do with the fact that, well, most Jews live in the northern hemisphere, so even those of us living in the southern hemisphere are requesting rain based on the needs of most of our people. That's one suggestion advanced. And together with that is the notion of everybody praying at the same time. The idea of a unified request of God, although there is a difference between Israel and the diaspora, but that's an appropriate distinction, the Holy Land outside. Once we're talking about outside the land of Israel, it's kind of uniform. At any rate, that's the halachic conclusion for the most part, which most Jews abide by, most communities, no matter where they live, north or southern hemisphere, they will ask for rain December 4th or 5th. The actual request. Everybody is mentioning or praising God for causing the winds to blow and the rain to fall, but not requesting. That happens immediately at the end of Sukkot. We speak now of the request. But our topic now zeroes in on that singular traveler, that lonely traveler, who's traveling to the furthest extreme of the land of Israel, way up north, and was arriving 15 days after the conclusion of the holiday, and the entire country is withholding its request till he gets home. So, if you look at that kind of superficially, we might kind of imagine the following scenario. He comes home, turns around, he and his family, and says, a big thank you to everyone. Thanks, guys, for not inconveniencing my journey. They're traveling on mud, earth roads, and much appreciated. So he owes everybody else a great debt of thanks. But upon reflection, we might easily conclude that we owe him, we meaning the rest of the country, owes him a debt of thanks that, well, thanks to him, we have been sensitized to the need of one singular person. How powerful is that? He's ennobled us. This is a country which needs rain. Israel needs rain. Not blessed with a lot of lakes and rivers. And yet we're not asking, because of this one traveler, he's made us a little more selfless. So thank you for that. Moreover, it's thanks to this singular traveler that the spirit of the holidays endure. It's a letdown after the holidays, Rosh Hashanah, the majesty of Rosh Hashanah, the sanctity of Yom Kippur, the joy of Sukkot. And all of a sudden it all crashes. Yet this fellow has kept the spirit going for 2 more weeks because he's still traveling, and we're all very aware of this. He's traveling back from Jerusalem, from the Holy Temple. So he's kept the spirit and the awareness and the connection going for all of us, and therefore we owe him, as it were, this great debt of thanks. Halachically, there's an interesting halachic expression of this, and that is if a contract is drawn up between two people. One person, for example, lends somebody else's money, and the terms are that he's to pay back after the holiday, referring to Sukkot, after the Chag. The lender cannot ask to be paid before the 7th of Cheshvan, because the holiday isn't over till this traveler gets back home. Now we must add a detail. There's no longer a temple. We no longer have the temple. They're no longer travelers. So why are we still continuing in the land of Israel this law of not asking for rain in a country that desperately needs it, delaying the request for 2 weeks? The answer is because even after the temple was destroyed, people still continued, and to this very day, make this trek to Jerusalem. To be in Jerusalem, to be in the environs of the Holy Temple. Though destroyed, the sanctity remains. So people for a long time, even after the second temple was destroyed, continued to travel and go back to even the furthest reaches. And therefore that tradition continues. And even today, when the roads are paved, they were traveling by helicopter, plane, car, we still continue because it makes everyone so much aware of the centrality of the temple in Jewish life. Its effect lingers for weeks after the high holidays. So again, we owe him, her, this family, thank you for continuing the spirit and keeping alive, very much alive and front and center in our consciousness, the connection to Jerusalem and the Holy Temple. But friends, it goes even deeper than that. And here's the thing. You see, in Judaism, in God's world, we should always be ascending, growing, deepening our connection to God, growing as human beings, as Jews, getting ever closer. So the question is, particularly for the pilgrim who's made this journey to Jerusalem, he's in the Holy Temple, he's experiencing the divine. In the words of our sages, one has to come to see and be seen, to behold God and to be beheld by God. There were daily miracles in the temple, certainly the first temple, which lasted for 500 plus years. 500 years. And now he's going back home to the farm, to the cow, it's a tremendous letdown. Where's the progression here? And even today, coming off, well, they're called high holidays for good reason. Actually, it's high holy days, not high holidays. That's the original Yomim Leiroim, days of awe. And the translation, going back, is high holy days. It's come to be known as high holidays. But the high remains, whether you're referring it to holy or holly. These are days of transcendence and majesty and reverence and deep stirrings of the soul. And here we are, virtually overnight, thrust, falling back into the mundane, everyday world. Where's the ascent? Where's the growth? But of course the answer, friends, is that what is God's purpose? As we all know, God's purpose, God's desire in creation is that we make this world a home for God. It's about here. It isn't about transcendence. It's about engagement. Something to ponder. Friends, the Torah, the Word of God, the 5 books of Moses, I challenge you, viewer, read it from beginning to end. There's something strangely missing. What's missing, friends, is any reference to the hereafter, to heaven or hell. In stark contrast to all other religious manifestos, tracts, sacred texts, it's all about the afterlife. It's all about the destination in the netherworld and avoiding the fires of purgatory or eternal damnation. And although, of course, we do believe in heaven and hell, in fact, that's where everybody else got the idea from, it's not there in the primary text. It's not there in the Word of God. The Talmud talks about it, the Midrash, the Kabbalah. How is it missing? It talks about the sky, not heaven. When the Torah says Shamayim, it means the sky. The answer is because it isn't about heaven or hell. Although that's part of the picture, part of the journey, but the ultimate objective is to make this world a home for God, heaven on earth. That is the ultimate. In Hebrew, dira betachtonim, a dwelling place down here. So therefore, friends, the high holidays, Shabbos, Yom Tov, the pilgrimage to the temple, that isn't the objective or end all. The point is, be inspired and bring it back home. That's the point. So the Jew, knowing that I'm going back to my everyday humdrum life with the mission to sanctify it and make it godly and eternal, that ought to infuse us with a very deep joy, delight and pleasure, a buoy in our steps, because this is why we are created. And in so doing, we are carrying out God's most inner desire. Just to elaborate for a moment on this purpose of creation, to reveal godliness, that needs to be addressed and kind of qualified. You see, the Kabbalah speaks about the hidden, stima, and then there's the hidden of the hidden. Stima the chol stimin. Or there is the oimek, the depth, and there's the oimek lefnim me oimek, the depth within the depth. By that, the following is meant. Purpose of life, friends, is not simply to reveal in the world that there is a creator. The purpose of life is not simply to live in harmony with creation by connecting to the great conductor of creation, so that every instrument contributes its beautiful melodic note to the symphony of life. No, as beautiful as that is, it isn't about respecting my world, says God. I want you to revolutionize it, not respect it, transform it, which means reveal in creation that I am beyond creator. God as creator, that's not who God is. He's not a creator. He's the creator. A creator means that's what he does. An artist produces wonderful works of art. The creator or a creator produces creation. No, God's infinitely beyond the role of creator, beyond description altogether. He chose to be a creator and create a beautiful world, but he wants us to reveal not only that there is this creative force behind it, which means intelligent design, and live harmoniously with nature and get along with each other, which is beautiful, nations, people, families. Much more than that, sanctify my world. Reveal in creation, in nature, that I am beyond creator, the truly infinite, beyond all description God. That's what Torah mitzvah is all about. Revealing the very essence, the hidden of the hidden. So the hidden is, there's a creator. That isn't obvious. We have to decode the world and discover that things are not happenstance, and that it's all integrated and it's all divine design, and science really helps us in understanding that there is a force behind all things, and it isn't happenstance and the other word I'm looking for, haphazard. But that's just touching or tapping into the hidden. The hidden of the hidden is behind that is the true mystery. The truth is that quantum physics is seeing that too. The truly infinite mystery behind even the order of creation, as prophesied in the Torah, that science would discover this pre-Mashiach. So in summary, the mission is to reveal God himself. In other words, it isn't enough to be good, it's be godly, and bring godliness to goodness. The hidden from the hidden. Hidden level one is there's a creator. Hidden, the true hidden is that even the creator is not who God is. He's infinitely beyond even this role of the incredible, wise creator. That's the mission, sanctify the world. All of it. All of it. God wants us to make this world a home for him. So till this last pilgrim doesn't get home to the furthest edge of Israel, which is symbolic of the whole world, because one day the whole world becomes Israel. He's the furthest from Jerusalem, and Israel does have many levels of holiness. Jerusalem is one level, and within the temple there are levels and levels and levels. He's the furthest from that. Till he gets home, the whole purpose of why there is a temple hasn't been achieved, is to suffuse and bring sanctity to every part of God's world. We got to wait till he gets there, because all of our effort is pointless if there's one part of God's world that doesn't know the truth, which is what he brings. He completes the mission for all of us. Let's explore that a little bit deeper. The metaphor is a home. The metaphor of the mission. Our mission it is to make this world a home for God. Let's consider our home. Now, in terms of function, not all parts of the home are equal. There's the kitchen. There's the bedroom, the bathroom. And then there are other auxiliary rooms, storage rooms, that if you didn't use, well, ever stepped into, your home would still be functional. So in terms of function, there's a disparity. Some rooms are more critical than others. Some parts of your courtyard, garden. But if what if you to be told that, you know, there's one part of your house you can't go. You can't go there. What do you mean? It's my home. If I can't go to even one part of my home that isn't necessarily even critical or functional, truth is that would compromise even where I am allowed to go, because I'm not the master here. So in terms of ownership and master, my home, it's every part of it equally. In terms of function, I use this one more often, less often, but more important in the hierarchy of function and survival. But in terms of being, ownership, it's all mine, equally. And on the contrary, it's the ones that are not functional, that are truly expressive of, it's my home. Because if someone were to stop me from going there, that would undermine the whole essence of my home. Precisely because it isn't necessarily so critical in terms of function. Let me rephrase that. What really is expressive of the home are the details of the home that are not relevant to function. The decoration. Friends, the woman is the home. This is really a related but critical subject. Within humanity, there's male and female. But who's the real homemaker? It's the woman. Which is why Eve is created last, because she's the pinnacle within humanity. If you notice, human being is created last, not first, because he's the whole objective. Here's the setting, here's the mission laid out. Now, God creates man to fulfill the mission. Within man, woman is created last because she's the pinnacle. She is the ultimate homemaker, because that's the whole purpose, is to make this world a home for God. What makes it a home is not so much the function, that there's a faucet, that there's a door, that there's a roof. Any shelter will fulfill those requirements. It's precisely in the decoration, the detail. And the question is, why did you choose that? Because that's me. I see myself in this color and this particular. She will choose that which is, or the homeowner, that which is a reflection of her. And that's what home is, friends. It's a place which is expressive of me being. I am. I am is what's nurtured in a home. I perform outside the home, but the essence of the home is I am. And the I am is expressed in those rooms which are not functional, really. Why they're there? Because it's my home. Don't tell me I can't go there. And I've decided to make that home. Why this decoration? It could be another. It could be, and just maybe even more functional. But that talks to me. So what makes a home as opposed to a house or a building or a shelter, what makes it a home is precisely those details that are decorative, that are expressive of the ones who live there, and primarily the woman who is the home. So, we're saying in God's world, God says, I want you to make this world a home for me, every part of it. And yes, I want the big moments. Jerusalem is important, in the Holy Temple, and Shabbos and Yom Tov, but what really makes your life and this world a home for me is the extraneous, extreme details that appear to be insignificant. But if you sanctify that, then I am at home here in this world. You've truly made this world a home for me. So the Jew that travels to the extremity In terms of holiness and proximity, it's the furthest. Most of the people don't even know this place exists. Living in Israel, some small village near the Euphrates River, on the banks of the Euphrates in ancient Israel. Him getting home, that's so symbolic of, what's the whole purpose? To bring godliness to every chamber and nook and cranny of God's world. Your home is your home where you have access to, and it's all an expression of you. Even the not so obvious things, the not so functional things. So the 7th of Cheshvan is so powerfully significant. The day when the last pilgrim arrived home, that's the whole objective. The inspiration that we received in the high holidays to translate it and bring that sanctity to the most ordinary, insignificant, extraneous detail of our life. Casual conversations, the way we wake up in the morning, the way we go to sleep, the way we dress, the way we shower. No, those things are significant, and there's godly ways to do that. Godly, not just human, functional, healthy ways to do, which there are. But that needs to be also fused with sanctity. That's the whole objective. And therein lies the home, the detail. She wants this there. That's it, because that's her. Not here, but there, and this particular object, or this color. God, the same thing. I want every detail of your life and the world that I've allotted to you. So, the 7th of Cheshvan, then, leaving the high holidays and leaving the temple, leaving Jerusalem, we are imbued with a deep, deep sense of privilege and joy. Particularly those of us that have to deal with a very mundane, ordinary, unholy world. That ought not be cause for despondence. On the contrary, that means I have the ability to sanctify and bring holiness there. And that's what it's all about. And everybody else is waiting for me. All of the other achievements of the scholars and the mystics and so on, who are not really dealing with the world at its most nitty-gritty level, they are sanctifying, higher elements of God's world, but it's got to be everything or nothing. If there's a place in my home that I'm borrowed from, and then it's not my home. It's got to be everything. Now there's a profound connection, friends, to the Parsha. We always read the story of Noah on the Shabbos before the 7th of Cheshvan. So briefly, friends, point out two things. One, at the end of the story of Noah. The end of the story is the story of the Tower of Babel. Now, the Torah says people got together after the flood and they built this big city and huge tower. What exactly were they about? What did they want? Now, there's many levels to what their intent was, probably because there are many people and many had different levels. I'm going to share with you what Hasidus reveals, actually quoted, sourced in the Ramban, Nachmanides, which would express the deepest, most noble motivation by the leaders. They wanted unity. We should all live in one place, in one language, and this one unifying tower pointing to the heavens. Transcendence. That's what it's all about. Now, their punishment was that they were dispersed and their languages were no longer spoke a uniform language. That wasn't so much like all punishments in Torah, like you sinned, you did something wrong, now hurt, now feel pain. That's not what punishment is in God's world. Punishment is consequence, and at the end, tikkun, fixing. God dispersed them because He's saying it's not what I want. You want to be angelic and be monolithic and unified and one and transcend. That's heaven. My purpose is godliness on earth. You've got to go to the different parts of the world. The whole world is mine and yours. And you're all different. And I made you that way. Different languages. Some of you will live close, some will live far. It's not this, it's a symphony. It's one melody, but it's very different instruments. From the cymbals to the delicate flute and the violin. And it's great work to harmonize the two, indeed. But God disperses them because He's saying you've got to reach the furthest reaches of creation of my world in your unique different ways and sanctify them. Bring the divine there. And that's also reflected. So we see the connection to the 7th of Av, this story and its consequence, the 7th of Cheshvan. It's also reflected in an interesting detail at the end of the flood. Backing up now, the last story, in the story of the flood. So when the flood is over, imagine this. Noah and his family, cooped up for virtually a year in the ark. He worked tirelessly, feeding all of the animals and so on. In fact, once he was late, also he just tell us, and the impatient lion let him know. And he received a wound for his tardiness. And yet, when it comes to the end of it all, God has to command him to leave. And God said to Noah, leave the ark, you and your wives and children. Why in heaven's name would he need a commandment to leave? You'd think he'd be clawing at the door. And the moment that the waters had subsided sufficiently and the land had dried, he'd be out in a flash. He's told, commanded to, because he resists leaving. And that's because the ark was heaven on earth. It was Eden. The animals, friends, natural mortal enemies, lived in harmony, separated by tiny little booths for a year. He worked hard, he did feed the animals, that's true, but there was this spirit of unity, of transcendence. He didn't want to leave that, and God says, not the purpose. The purpose is difference. Here the animals transcended their nature. The point is that the animals have their different natures and nonetheless live in a harmonious world. You will achieve that through effort, mitzvah by mitzvah. It will take a long time, but we'll get there. And you can't stay in the ark. You've got to go out and, in the words of God to Adam and Eve, conquer my world. Conquer, it means bring sanctity, and bring sanctity everywhere, till the whole world becomes, in fact, a home and will be unified. But that shall be through your effort and your mitzvah by mitzvah. So therein too lies the connection to the 7th of Cheshvan. All to say, friends, that we come now from the high holidays. We are all spiritually charged. We have, in the words of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, we've had a successful purchase spree at this elaborate market, and we have acquired all kinds of wonderful goods. They're all packaged because one experience followed the other. There wasn't even time to truly savor. And now we take all of these experiences. Every day, friends, there's got to be a moment of Yom Kippur. Every day, the joy of Simchas Torah. Every day, the unity of the four kinds. We take these experiences, these moments, these connections with us, and we share it with the world. We imbue the world, we imbue the mundane with these sacred connections. So the real work happens now. And the good news is that we are all fortified and strengthened, and we have the goods, quite literally. We've loaded up. The holidays have come and imparted this and imbued us, even if you weren't consciously aware of it at the time. But that's why God created us with memory. Memory's primary function is not to recall the bad stuff we did. Better forget that and move on. It's to remember the beautiful moments, the inspirational moments. Connect to them and then bring them to bear on the present, the here and the now, sanctifying it, and in so doing, making this world a home for God, where, God willing, very soon, He will be revealed in all of His essential divine glory, unifying, uniting all of His creation with Him. Thanks for listening.